represent California's 39th District, and I chair the Foreign Affairs Committee in the House of Representatives. For many weeks, the House and Senate have been reviewing President Obama's nuclear agreement with Iran. In September, we will vote on this consequential initiative. This is only fitting. Figuring out how to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon is one of the biggest national security challenges we face. Unfortunately, this agreement comes up short. Under its terms, the U.S. and other world powers permanently give up the financial pressure we have built against Iran, but Iran must only temporarily stall its nuclear program. After just 10 or so years, the restrictions on Iran's programs began to expire. Iran is then allowed to expand its nuclear program to an industrial scale. And since Iran is allowed to keep and advance key bomb-making technology, Iran will then be just steps from a nuclear weapon. And that is if Iran doesn't cheat. This will push Iran's neighbors to begin their own programs. Of course, Iran is the #1 state sponsor of terrorism in the world. Its leaders live by the motto, "Death to America." Iran doesn't behave like the peaceful countries that have nuclear programs. So why does this agreement treat it like one? Well, President Obama is betting that Iran will change over a few short years into a country that can be trusted with nuclear bomb-making technology. He is betting against history. So many in the Senate and the House, from both parties, have decided that we can't make this bet. And I would be opposing President Obama's nuclear deal. While most Americans are just now beginning to think about the consequences of this flawed agreement, we have been focused on Iran for many years. Indeed, before President Obama launched these negotiations, the House of Representatives passed bipartisan and hard-hitting sanctions I authored by a vote of 400 to 20. These sanctions would have given Iran's supreme leader a choice between its nuclear program or economic collapse. But the administration was successful in blocking that legislation from becoming law. So instead of us today considering a verifiable, enforceable, and accountable agreement, what the Obama administration sought out to achieve, the administration settled for an agreement that gives Iran too much, too fast, and at the expense of the security of the United States and our allies. Worse, there have been revelations in recent days about an agreement between Iran and the United Nations nuclear watchdog. This agreement sets the conditions in which a key Iranian military site suspected of nuclear bomb work will be explored. While the details have been kept from Congress, it's reported that instead of international inspectors doing the inspecting, Iranians themselves will take the inspection lead. Iran has cheated on every agreement they've signed. Why are we trusting them on this? And when they do cheat, we won't have any economic pressure left to bear as the deal guts the sanctions and revives Iran's economy. And where does all the new money go? To the largest terror network on earth, wreaking havoc across the region, arming the likes of Hezbollah and arming Hamas. And with the administration too eager for a deal, Iran won late concessions. Against the advice of the Pentagon, international restrictions on its intercontinental ballistic missile program are lifted. These missiles, designed to carry nuclear weapons, threaten our homeland. If this agreement goes through, Iran gets a cash bonanza. It gets a boost to its international standing and a path toward nuclear weapons.
Startling new revelation about nuclear agreements with Iran. The International Atomic Energy Agency will allow Iran to use its own inspectors to investigate at least one of their own nuclear sites. That disclosure has intensified questions about the deal. I'm joined now by Israel's ambassador to the United States, Ron Dermer. Ambassador Dermer, thanks for being with us.
Good to be with you.
First of all, what is your reaction to this revelation?
Well, it's a farce. One of the things that was supposed to be resolved in this agreement was supposed to be the possible military dimensions of Iran's nuclear program. Iran has cheated many times in the past, and they were supposed to have to come clean about their past activities. And now we're being told that Iran is going to provide its own samples to be tested. Imagine somebody would be suspended from the NFL for abuse of drugs. And then the NFL would sign an agreement with that player that from now on, they would provide their own urine samples to be tested in the future. Would anyone say that this is acceptable?
Deal. Under mounting pressure, President Obama is launching a fresh campaign to attack its opponents and shore up support.
And, when Israel's opposed to something, a lot of Democrats as well as Republicans pay attention. The difference, though, is that most of the Democratic senators have taken the time to actually read the bill and listen to the arguments. A sizable proportion of the Republicans were opposed before the ink was even dry on the deal, before it was even posted. And that gives you some sense of the degree to which this is driven by partisan politics or ideology as opposed to analysis.
Joining us now to analyze from Los Angeles, Rick Grinnell, former advisor to 4 U.S. ambassadors to the UN, and from Washington, former advisor to Hillary Clinton's 2008 presidential campaign, Richard Goodstein. Richard, I look at that soundbite, and I think of last week or the week before when President Obama compared the GOP to crazy radical mullahs saying death to America, and now he's saying, the Republicans, they didn't even read that bill, that legislation. They were against it before it even started. You really think the Republicans haven't read the legislation, haven't read the deal?
Well, we know. I saw some of the presidential candidates on Fox News the morning that the deal was announced, and they clearly hadn't read it because it hadn't been posted, saying how horrible it was. This was, the worst thing that ever happened. So it's a factual matter. Look, Jeb Bush said this is appeasement. That was exactly what people said about Ronald Reagan talking with Gorbachev, that he was appeasing the evil empire before he entered into nuclear arms talks. So we've seen this before, and the fact that Chuck Schumer has come out against this is actually, I think, a good sign for the president, because I don't think Schumer would have done it if he thought that was going to bring the deal down.
No, I think you're 100% right. I think Schumer did it because he knew it wasn't going to bring the deal down. He may have spent all his political capital doing it. However, he's probably right. It's probably not going to. You're not going to get enough votes for a veto. Rick, how bad is this deal when the deal needs its own Twitter account?
Yeah, I mean, the State Department set up its own Twitter account for the Iran deal. It's like hashtag diplomacy all over. First of all, let's go back, Eric, to what the president just said. The president was so offensive to Israel in that statement because what he's really saying is, Israel doesn't read the bills. They just come up with their own statements. But if you actually look at the facts, Israel and Republicans and Democrats, you would see something different. Let me also, this is a no-spin zone, let me correct Richard on one thing. If you've watched this Iran diplomacy for the last 18 months, every part of this has been leaked. What we needed to see when the deal was announced was one thing. Was there any time, anywhere inspections? That was a quick glance. It was not in there because we had watched this diplomatic maneuvering come from the beginning, and that's all it takes. If you go back to the original IAEA questions, over 100 questions have still been unanswered. Secretary Kerry promised us that those questions would be answered before we cut a deal. That's not what happened. We still have lingering questions about Parchin and a whole bunch of other sites. We do not have access to those sites, and yet we're giving the money back, and we're admitting that the money is going to go to terrorism.
And that's...
For the last couple of days now, we've been waiting to hear from our senior senator, Chuck Schumer, about his decision to break party ranks when it comes to the Iran deal being pushed by the White House. Well, today, Senator Schumer spent some time in Wyoming County. We hear now what he had to say beyond his blog post from the other day. 7 Eyewitness News reporter Ed Riley was there to talk with the senator today.
Well, Keith and Joanna, congressional Republicans have been very vocal in denouncing the proposed deal with Iran, but it came as a bit of a surprise when the third-ranking Democrat in the U.S. Senate announced that he, too, was against the deal. U.S. Senator Charles Schumer said it was one of the most difficult decisions he has ever made. But Schumer says after meeting with the White House, having classified briefings, and studying the Iran agreement, he cannot support it for 3 reasons. First, he doesn't trust Iran to be truthful. Second, he doesn't think the inspection provisions are strong enough. And thirdly, Iran will get access to billions of dollars once the sanctions are lifted. Money Schumer believes will be used to make the world even more unsafe.
It seems pretty clear that they will use that money to do all kinds of very bad things, both in the Middle East and in the world. They will probably increase aid to Hezbollah, Hamas, terrorist organizations. They will create more trouble in Yemen and in Syria. And they can use these dollars, nothing in the agreement prohibits them from building an ICBM. They already have missiles that can reach Israel and Europe, but not.
Schumer would not say if President Obama is pressuring him to change his position. And Schumer dismisses the idea that not having a deal could lead to war or Iran having a nuclear bomb. The senator believes the U.S. should keep sanctions in place while sending negotiators back to work out a better agreement. And Congress is expected to vote on the Iran deal next month.
Here at home, dozens gathered in opposition to the proposed nuclear deal with Iran. Demonstrators held signs and the American and Israeli flags at Baltimore's Penn Station this afternoon, calling on the Maryland congressional delegation to block the deal. Organizers say the agreement is flawed and the Obama administration needs to negotiate a better one.
Despite the deal, Iran's nuclear infrastructure remains intact. Many billions of dollars of sanctions relief will go to Iran to allow them to pursue terrorism and other bad acts throughout the world. And there are just too many loopholes in this deal to make it the sort of deal that the United States should feel safe about.
Now, Congress will vote on the deal next month, but President Obama has vowed to veto a measure.
U.S. Senator is saying no to the Iran nuclear deal. That's right, Keegan. 16 WAPT's Ross Adams joins us live in the newsroom. You spoke to Senator Wicker today.
That's right, Tammy. Senator Wicker revealing publicly for the first time where he stands on the Iran nuclear deal. The Republican lawmaker told us he's against it, and he plans to vote against the agreement negotiated between Secretary of State John Kerry and top Iranian officials. Wicker also says there's no way to verify the deal, and he doesn't trust the Iranian leaders to uphold their end of the bargain.
When you're dealing with somebody, you consider the past conduct of who you're negotiating with, and the mullahs, the ayatollah, the people in charge of Iran have shown no indication that they're trustworthy. So I don't trust their word.
Wicker told us he thinks the deal could free up millions of dollars that Iran could use for state-sponsored terrorism that could impact U.S. troops now fighting in the Middle East. Tammy, a vote is scheduled on this deal next month. President Obama has already said he will veto it if lawmakers in Congress vote it down.
We've been talking about this for a while now, Ross. Thanks so much. Live for us in the newsroom.